Okay, thank you everyone. I think it's now time to start, and I hope others will join us very soon. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to welcome you again to our Go for Grass Green Week event, which is organized by ATB, Greenovate, and other partners from Grass projects. And we are delighted to have you with us today to discuss about the untapped potential in grasslands. My name is Mulukan Adam Seket. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy. So I'm moderating this afternoon session together with Alec. Basically, he's moderating the panel discussion. Just to give you a few additional, just to remind you, this online event is being recorded. So both the recording and the PowerPoint presentations will be shared after the online events. So now you are in a listening only mode, but after each presentation, there will be space for questions, and yeah, the questions can be like in a written form, or you can do it by raise your hand as well. So during the morning session, we had wonderful presentations and discussions. As most of you are there, I hope. Now in the afternoon session, we focus more on how to basically foster the development of grass-based businesses in the EU and beyond. And for this session, we have 3 presentations, and we have three presentations and panel discussions. So our first presenter is Maria Rosa. She's a professor from University of Santiago de Compostela. She will present alternative grassland uses in the EU bioeconomy framework. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me.
Yes.
And see my slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So good morning. Good afternoon. Sorry, it's morning for Spain, but it's the afternoon for the rest of Europe. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here and make this presentation that is part of the deliverables that we are producing within the as USC of the GreenGrass project. Well, I will talk about alternative grassland uses in the EU bioeconomy framework. Slow down. Okay, and I will focus my presentation in 2 main aspects. The first one is about the resources. How we have a grassland. How available is it? Is it of enough quality to be used for the different uses that can be proposed for grasses within a bioeconomy sector, like for example the ones shown this morning, like feed, energy, fertilizer, paper, or cartoon. With regard to the availability, well, grasslands percentage represents the 20% of the EU area and the 50% of the agricultural land in Europe. It means that the grassland extent is huge and relevant for establishing business plans, but the proportion that occupies different areas of Europe is quite different. We have areas with 60–70% of the land allocated to grassland, but other areas with a much smaller share in the land. But to know if the grass is available, it's also important to know the productivity per hectare of each type of in each country. And we can see here that the Atlantic area of Europe is highly productive, but we have other areas where the availability of the grass for the different uses that we are proposing in GreenGrass are much lower. For example, in the Mediterranean area. Well, there are different types of grasslands across Europe, and based on the CAP definition, we have the temporary grassland that are those linked to arable lands because they are cultivated for crop production, and we have also the permanent grasslands, those that are not cultivated or incorporated within a rotation, a crop rotation for 5 years or more. If we compare the benefits of with regard to the availability of temporary grassland compared with permanent grassland, We can say that these ones have a higher predictable production. It's more productive per unit of land. It has a more quality because it's a more homogeneous material when we have to use it for any kind of use. But there are some cons, like for example, the competition for the land or with other crops that are used for food production is less resilient because usually they are based on it's resilient to climate aspects because they are based on a monospecific grasslands, and usually because they are highly extractive, they use to make poor the soils. But if we want to produce something straightforward, this is a more suitable alternative use than the permanent grassland from an industrial, let's say, point of view. No, okay. Well, I also like to explain that there are different types of grasslands besides those that are dominated by herbaceous vegetation. There are some areas where shrublands are the form of permanent grassland that we have across of Europe. So if shrublands are grazed, they are considered permanent grasslands. Let me show different type of grasslands. I will put an example of Spain from the north that is quite similar to what happened in the Netherlands or in the Atlantic area of Europe. But as far as we move to the south of Spain, we see grasslands that are less abundant and mostly based on the shrublands. But there are other areas that have grasslands available for different alternative use, like for example, the municipal gardens, the roadsides, or the high nature value or parks that are spread all over Europe. And of course, those areas where we have abandoned grassland that may represent in some regions of Europe almost 40% of the land. It means that we have a lot of grasslands, but they have a lot of different availability across Europe and different quality, which would affect to the potential use that we want to give to this grass. Well, I will be focused on 4 main uses: feed, energy, fertilizer, paper, and cartoon. And we'll integrate within the fertilizer part the animal bedding that are produced in the GoGrass project. Well, as feed, we can have it as fresh, or we can have it as preserved feed that are traditional used, like for example hay or silage. But within the GoGrass, we try to produce, as you saw this morning, some protein that can come from after a processing that we are evaluating. Well, the main uses of this grass at the end goes through the use of it by animals, and the animals producing some products that are sold, and that can have different types of degrees of transformation or processing. Like for example, from drinking milk or cream for direct consumption that is used or spread all over Europe, to most specific transformation products coming from grass through the animal production, like for example the power products. But in general, we can say that, and this is a common thing, that the alternative uses of grass are more intensively used in Germany, which are also the place where the herbaceous vegetation grows much better, as we saw before. Well, as you know, bioeconomy have several aims, and the grass for feed fulfills, if adequately managed, the field to ensure food and nutrition security, but also to strengthening European competitiveness and creating jobs. And this is a type of use of the grass that is already established, and let's say this would be the competition of the new uses. If we focus on energy, well, we try to get advantages of the carbohydrates the grass have with different kind of qualities that goes through a biogas plant that can be used and produce heating or electricity when combined with heat, when processed in a combined heat and power plant, or upgraded to produce biomethane that can be used for the gas network of the fuel. But also we have some from some of these transformation, we produce digestates that we will see later on that can be used as alternative for grass as a fertilizer. Well, how is this use distributed across Europe? Well, in general, it's not so easy to find biogas plants that exclusively use grasses. So in this sense, Go Grass is quite innovative. But it is true that the technology of biogas is already known in some areas of Europe and better than in others. Like, for example, in Germany, that has a huge amount of biogas plants that can be transformed or converted in the use of grass in an exclusive way or in combination with other raw materials. But at least they know and they are aware, and the farmers are aware of the methodology, which is important when we plan to make an alternative use of the grass. The methane is a further transformation of the biogas, therefore is less implemented, but again it is mostly associated to Germany and the north part of Europe, where the grass production is higher and therefore the availability is more ensured than in other areas, at least if we think of herbaceous vegetation. Well, which are the main aims of the bioeconomy that are fulfilled by the use of the grass as energy? Well, it is a reduction of dependence on non-renewable resources, which is quite relevant. It is one of the aims of the climate strategy of the European Union, because we are aimed to use renewable resources instead of non-renewable resources. It helps to mitigate climate change. And of course, because it is a new opportunity and has a lot of advantages from the energy point of view at the European level, will strengthen the European competitiveness and creating new jobs from a bioeconomy point of view. If we think on amendments or fertilizers as an alternative use of the grass, we can think on organic amendments, for example, the production of biochar, or the use of fertilizers, like, for example, the phosphorus, the digestates from biogas production, or the animal bedding mixed with manure that is enriched with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium because of this transformation. With regard to biochar, we can use any kind of grass. This is quite compatible with the use of permanent grassland, because what we do is to carry out a pyrolysis process, which means heating at high temperature and burning biomass, which produces a residue that is called a subproduct or byproduct that is known as a biochar, which is quite relevant because it's able to store a lot of high amount of organic matter that is able to be for a long period of time stored, and what is highly relevant if we think from a climate change point of view. Well, biochar as an alternative use is also very relevant because it's a source of mainly of phosphorus, and well, it means a good news because, as you know, phosphorus is a nutrient that is produced based on mining, and the storage of this element is we will run out of phosphorus by 2050 because we reduce we are emptying, let's say like this, by the mines. Animal bedding, yeah, we have different type of it can be used also with different types of grass, like permanent grassland or temporary grassland, which after mechanical treatment and mixing treatment and enrichment through the manure that is produced by the animals that use it as animal bedding, produces a product that can be also used as fertilizer because of the high nitrogen content that it has, for example, higher than digestates, a higher phosphorus content and potassium content due to the enrichment produced during as when it acts as animal bedding. Digestate is also another resource of fertilizer, which is also relevant with different amount of nutrients, but with a highly important thing is that it has a high amount of ammonia, which is directly used by the plants and not organic nitrogen that has to be mineralized to be used by plants. The pH is high, which is a good news for soils that are acidic, and we have more than half of the soils of Europe as acidic. The value as a fertilizer of the grass would depend on the composition of the grass. It is not the same if it is annual, where we are based, for example, in ryegrass or tall fescue, etc., where then if we compare it with permanent grassland that usually have a higher legume content that increases the percentage, for example, of nitrogen. Also, the management will affect the value of the grass as fertilizer because it depends on the farm harvest time, but also the management, the amount of nitrogen that we are applying into the soil. So this will determine the total amount of and the balance between the different nutrients, but also the non-degradable material which limit the mineralization and therefore the availability of the nutrients for the crop. The total proportion then to note about this availability, the total proportion of mineral compounds of, for example, nitrogen, like ammonia or nitrate, will be key to determine the added value of the fertilizer that we are producing, because these two forms of nitrogen are directly used by the plants. Of course, also the labile micronutrients will depend on this, and which is linked to the nutrients that are available during the first year, but also the residue macronutrients that will not be available in the first years. This means that the values of fertilizer will depend on the proportion of these three forms of nutrients, from mineral directly available, from residue macronutrients which are not available in the different forms of processing of the grass. From a fertilizer point of view, how the aims are fulfilled from a bioeconomy point of view, well, it ensures food and nutrition security because we need to use fertilizers to increase productivity, and also to manage natural resources sustainability, because we produce it from grass and not, for example, by like the nitrogen that is nitrogen mineral fertilizers are obtained by the incorporation with a huge amount of energy expenditure of nitrogen that comes from the atmosphere. If we use it from grass, as we mentioned before, then we reduce the dependence on non-renewable resources to produce this nitrogen. It helps to mitigate therefore climate change, because we have less dependence of non-renewable resources, like, for example, gas, and the strengthening of European competitiveness and creating jobs through the development through the use of this material resource that is available all over Europe and that is not currently used. From a paper and carton point of view, I'm thinking of bioeconomy. It will help us to ensure food and nutrition security, because we are able to package the food in a more sustainable way without a dependence of the current mostly used plastics, reducing the dependence on non-renewable resources, because these plastics come from petrol, as you know, mitigating therefore the climate change, and because we produce a new alternative for the use of this grass, strengthening the European competitiveness and creating jobs. But how is this bioeconomy fostered across the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy across Europe? Well, we made an evaluation of the different measures that are associated to the rural development programs across Europe, and we have to say that they're more focused on land management than instead of what to do with the resources that we have that we produce from this land. But there are some aspects that can be used to improve the adoption of this alternative use of grass, like for example the better knowledge transfer and information actions, the advisory services promotion, or the investments in physical assets that nowadays are more related with fences, meadow improvements, irrigation, than in the payments of new infrastructures to make the transformation of grass in these new innovative uses. This is an example of what are the main topics that are implemented by the most used measure across Europe, which is the agri-environment measure that is related more with the harvest of the grass, the fertilization, or the overgrazing. But then, how is promoted nowadays the new uses of grass in Europe? Well, if we focus on the renewable gases, meaning on biogas, usually this is linked, which is the most developed one. It is usually linked to the national support schemes, financial support schemes across Europe. And this is an example. How is it working again through the central part of Europe with different types of supporting schemes? Well, as conclusions, well, we can say that grasslands is a broadly available resource in Europe. The local variability is highly variable. There are excellent opportunities for grass to fulfill the bioeconomy aims of the European Commission, as I mentioned, for each of the type of uses of grass that we are evaluating within the Go Grass project. CAP promotes grass management investment, but not value chains or grass use alternatives infrastructures development in Europe, and most support is national, increasing differences among countries in Europe when programming alternative uses of grass in Europe. And thank you very much for hearing me, and I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you so much, Rosa, for your insight on alternative grassland use in the EU bioeconomy framework. I think we just get one question from Federico. So it says, what can you foresee for the integration of grass-based biorefinery with more traditional livestock production system? In which ways could say increase the overall efficiencies? Could it be about convenience efficiencies, or is it just about the use of different resources, example, marginal resources?
Can I see the question, because it's a bit long and the sound sometimes is cut, so I'm not able to hear it. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's long. No, I don't have the question.
You don't have the question, so
no,
well,
I have this here. I have the welcome.
Maybe Federico, maybe I think we are also trying to make it as short as possible. Would you just clearly mention, briefly ask this question, probably if you want, and I'll give you
the floor.
The floor to speak. I'll unmute you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for such a long question. My question, I will try to make it shorter. What can you expect for the integration of these biorefineries with more traditional livestock production systems? And do you think, if yes, how do you think these biorefineries could increase the overall efficiency? Is just a matter of using marginal resources you would not use in a different way, or could be a matter of better, more efficient animal production?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Well, the comparison between the different type of use is key for the development of the new uses of the grasses, and I think they should be locally, they should be adapted from a local point of view. As I mentioned before, the global efficiency of the livestock systems, if it is great, then the new uses maybe can have not alternative for this feed that the grass that is used for livestock. And I can give you an example. For example, in the Netherlands, all grass is used for feeding animals. So there is, for this part of the grass, there is not alternative. But In Germany, for example, there are parks, there are a lot of places, high nature value places, where they have to harvest the grass to maintain and keep the biodiversity, but they are not used at all. So we can increase for knowing how to increase the efficiency between the different type of uses, we have to make an evaluation of what is happening in each area. But for example, in the Netherlands, they have tons and tons of waste that are very well organized to be put in a landfill, but they can give it an extra use. I hope to have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosa. I think we are also running out of time. I think some of you can just have another opportunity during the panel discussion to raise this question. Now we'll proceed to the next presentation. So the next presenter will be Professor Johannes Isselstein. He's a director at the Department of Grassland Science at the University of Göttingen. He will present to us innovative grassland utilization for sustainable agriculture intensification at the landscape level. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just wondering whether my presentation is online.
Not yet. We can't see it now.
I just wonder whether Benedict could provide me again with a link to upload my file. What can you see now? Is it my?
We just see only your GoToWebinar.
Trying. Is it changing?
Not yet.
I'm sorry. Is Miss Giara on board?
Yes. I can see.
Could you please remove and give me again the link? Obviously, I tagged the wrong.
I'm doing it now.
Righto.
Yes, perfect. Now it's
Is
here.
that perfect? Righto.
Yes.
So I'm trying again. Thanks a lot for inviting me to present a research project which has fairly recently been launched. It's a collaborative research among different groups in Germany, and it's about innovations in the utilization of grasslands. And the scope the regional scope is Germany. This project is part of a larger project that has been a call that has been launched by the Ministry of Science in Germany 2 years ago, looking for agricultural systems of the future. They were asking for collaborative research, which is inter and transdisciplinary, so meaning there are scientists and industry partners be asked to join this project, and 8 of those projects were successful, among one which is dealing with grasslands, and that is the GreenGrass project, which I'm going to talk about now. Well, a short introduction to the background of the system. It's all about ecosystem services from grasslands, and it's about meeting the targets that are related to grass production and grassland utilization. And this is production. Grassland is Germany, as well as in Europe, the basis of herbage or grass-based livestock production systems, mainly cattle, dairy, but also horses, sheep, goat, and so forth. But in addition, and this is now a particular point in relation to, or in comparison with arable land, the grasslands support a high biodiversity overall. It's in agricultural landscapes, grasslands cover up to 50% of the total biodiversity that is found there. Grassland is almost ideal in terms of soil conservation, reducing erosion losses. It plays a strong role in carbon sequestration, and again, it's compared to arable land, the waters are less polluted in general. However, these services are not without any costs, or there are risks to these services, and these concern all the points I mentioned beforehand. To give you an example, in terms of production, quite a bit of grassland in Germany is now almost being abandoned from agricultural use because it does not fit well into existing and current production systems. One example is the dairy. In Germany, dairy makes up 40% of the agricultural income in total, but the energy supply that comes from grassland and that support dairy is only 30% on average of the country. So grass is getting less important in terms of provision of energy and resources for dairy production. Same holds for the nature and environmental services. The biodiversity of grassland is really at risk. We lost quite an amount of diverse grasslands. Soil fertility is challenged through soil compactions and heavy fertilization. And there is also the issue of climate, which is not always positively affected by grassland management, and water quality is also a point in very intensively managed grasslands. So these risks are a result of abandonment or underutilization, particularly in terms of production and biodiversity, but it's also poor management, not really adapted to the particular conditions of the different grassland sites we have in Germany and Europe. And of course, another reason is a too intensive utilization of the grasslands. Now, the challenges we are dealing with is how can we sustain ecosystem services in the future in Europe and in Germany. And our main issue and main point is that we have to develop livestock production systems that, rather than increasing trade-offs, which we often found now in the current systems, livestock production systems should resolve trade-offs among production on the one hand and environmental targets on the other hand. And our hypothesis is what is required in the future is more innovations in utilization of grasslands, multiple production systems for multiple functions. And within our project GreenGrass, the focus is on developing grazing systems. We think that grazing systems have a huge potential and increasing the systems have a huge potential in providing the different services that are expected from grasslands production. We know many examples of how grazed grass can be very efficient in producing agricultural products like milk and meat. But also we know that grazing plays a vital role, an essential role in providing and sustaining biodiversity through complex interactions between the grass sward and the grazer, the grazing animal. And in general, there is also a huge debate on how to shape agricultural production systems that are related to grazing. Now, to give you some figures on a recent review, Paul van Dasselaar pointed out that grazing in Western Europe is still playing a quite important role, UK and Ireland, but it is decreasing in Central Europe, in Denmark, in Germany, in Austria. You see the figures for 2090 here, and it's low figures of grazing application in Eastern countries. So it's obviously a point to integrate systems, livestock systems that rely on grazing into the current challenges of providing and producing milk and meat. Now, if you ask experts in Europe, what are the constraints to grazing in the farming practice, then it's mainly about labor, in particular with increasing herd sizes. And the topics that come up with this is how can we reduce labor by virtual fencing techniques, for example, cow traffic management and so on. But it's also about how can we improve the grass intake? Do we have the right predictors? Do we know enough about the grass sward, how intake can be controlled? Is the grass supply in mass and quality appropriate? And then, of course, there are environmental problems. All these issues that are raised by grazing experts are related to the development of grazing systems and whether we can find solutions for smart management of the grazing animal on the grassland. And this is now the starting point of our GreenGrass project, where the vision is that we, rather than going back to agriculture of our parents and forefathers, we intend to use innovative technologies to shape the future of grazing systems. And this would, at the same time, have the potential to increase the agricultural added value from grasslands, because fresh grass is the best source, roughage source to feed cattle and to make very highly qualitative products from a poor resource, which the grass is, obviously, in terms of from human nutrition. At the same time, it has the potential to improve the diversity of habitats and biota, and it is highly, we know from various analyses, it's highly appreciated by the people and the consumers. Now, how do we achieve this goal to integrate smart farming technologies into the development of grazing systems? And this is mainly by applying virtual fencing technology, so we can reduce labor and we can control the spatio-temporal movement of the grazers in a particular area. And there is no need to fence with physical fences, but we use virtual fences. The information where the animal is allowed to go is covered in a collar, and this is a GPS collar, but it's also it also includes information given to the animal where it is allowed to go or not. There are acoustic signals in addition to electric signals which inform the animal where they are allowed to go or not. Now, the information which is required to achieve this comes from remote sensing technology. That means we employ drone data, airborne data, and also satellite data to evaluate the status of the grazing land. This is at first place the mass and the quality of the grass, but at the same time it is also the information that is required in terms of environmental services, like for example, if there is a spot on that area where meadow birds are breeding, then it's very simple to identify by remote sensing technology, and at the same time set the fence around this spot so that it is grazed for at least, not grazed for at least several weeks unless the chicken are able to move. And then we can open that fence and then this spot can be grazed by the grazers. But it's very, very targeted movement and grazing management. And all these information comes together in a multi-layer information system, which is of course web-based, and which then provides the farmer with relevant information. So every day or every week, the farmer will be able to adapt the fences according to the feeding requirements of the animals, the mass and the herbage that is available, and as well as the environmental targets that have to be met on that particular landscape. This is the scheme. I see I should stop now, come to an end. Am I right? I don't know, Mr. Chairman, or do I have a minute?
Yes. Maybe just in a minute to finalize.
Right. So this is a schematic representation of how we try to put these things together. There is one important point coming with this figure, is that we try to integrate science approaches, developing grazing systems, looking at the ecology, how to deal with the information, how can we include market aspects into the project, producing premium products and so on, and then the stakeholders. And this is merged with practitioners, and these two, science and practice, come together in so-called living labs. These are regional foci where we bring together farmers, science, NGOs, administration, in order to discuss the procedure of this approach and to what extent this can be adopted in the particular region, and to discuss the process of adoption. And thereby, this is we call it Living Lab, and this is the methodology is transformation science. Righto. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Johannes, for your insights on and your vision, objective on innovation, grassland utilization for sustainable agriculture. Right now, I don't see any questions, but Professor Johannes Isselstein, he will join our panel discussion. So some of you could keep your question for the panel discussion. So with this, I would like to give the floor for Alec, who is going to moderate our panel discussion.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Perfect. Good. Great. Thank you very much for a super presentation, Johannes. You were sticking around for our panel discussion. We also have Bram and Sinead with us as well. Sinead and Philipp, would you mind revealing yourself with the camera and joining us on this sort of virtual stage for the panel?
Yeah, the camera, we can see them, yeah.
Perfect, great, okay, good. Super. Well, I think we've had the perfect introduction to yourself, Johannes, with this presentation, but perhaps Bram and Sinead, you could say just a quick word about who you are and your background before the panel discussion starts.
You start, Sinead?
No, you can go, Bram.
Okay, well, I'm Bram Koopmans. Together with Professor Johan Sanders, we founded Grassa BV back in 2014 in the Netherlands. Grassa BV develops grass refineries, mainly grass, and I'm responsible for the design of the biorefinery. Right now, we have operational a 4-ton per hour biorefinery in Holvert in the north of Holland. And we are building at this moment an 8-ton per hour commercial unit. Our mobile unit, before that we have built a mobile unit, and you have seen that in the presentation of James before. We are able to make 4 products from our biorefinery, all 3 feed grade products and 1 fertilizer product. And at the end, clean water is coming out. In the future, we want to develop also food grade applications for our grass protein. But first, we have to roll out our 8-ton per hour feed grade biorefinery.
Super, thanks, Bram. Good to have a real business on the panel with us as well. And Sinead, tell us a little word about yourself.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm more from the academic side, less applied. So my name's Sinead O'Keefe, and I've been working for about 10 years now, looking at alternative bio-based systems. So I did my PhD on the feasibility of green biorefinery for Ireland, so developing a blueprint. And that was a joint project between Teagasc, which is the Irish Agricultural Authority in Ireland, and Wageningen University. And there I was also, that project was also indirectly affiliated with the Grass consortium, where Johan Sanders was also involved in that project, where they were looking at biorefinery options in the Netherlands. and also indirectly with the GreenGrass project of Padraig O'Reilly, where they were looking at different grass cultivars and effects of biomethane and biogas. So that's kind of, yeah, my background on green biorefinery. So it's a few moons ago, and in between I've been working in energy. So I've been looking at, in Germany, looking at the Energiewende, or the energy transition, and they're mostly on energy landscapes, and also in the area of regional bioeconomies. So yeah, more from kind of an academic point of view. And now I'm back in the Netherlands again with agro research, the research part of Wageningen University. And my work is mostly focusing on climate change and transitioning of agricultural systems, and more agro-system applications and principles. So.
Great, thank you very much. Lots of white spaces and joined dots there. So I'm sure you'll have lots to share with us in this vision session. Philipp, I think you've spoken already during today's session, and people generally know you around here, but you want to very quickly just say a word?
Okay, well, hello. Good afternoon now this time. I think we have a really exciting panel, very diverse. And for those who don't know me, I'm currently working at the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy, and coordinator of the GreenGrass project. So it's a real pleasure to discuss with you this topic.
Perfect. And finally, we've had the perfect visiting card for you from your presentation, but Johannes, you want to say a quick word about where your background and interests are?
Well, yes, happy to do that. I'm an agronomist from education, based at Göttingen University. It's a place where we still run an agricultural faculty. I'm a member of that, and my particular topic is grassland science, and the particular interest is in grazer-grass interaction. How can we use or understand those interactions and make use of it in advanced production systems, and with a particular interest in biodiversity to complete it. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I think that's all interesting background for our discussion just now, and I wanted to kick it off really coming not so much from this sort of area, but if we can project ourselves going forward, what does a successful grass-based business look like in 10 years' time? If we could try and imagine a sort of successful future for what we're aiming for, what does it look like? How does it function? What are its key traits for the economy, for the environment, and for the communities it serves? I mean, if we could take our crystal ball and imagine a good scenario, what does that grass-based business look like? Is my first kind of question to you as a panel, and I think maybe we could start with Bram, seeing as you're on the road to it first. But what does business look like for you in 10 years, and maybe your fellow entrepreneurs and businesses?
Yes, thank you. We have thought a lot about this, of course. How to roll out our biorefinery systems first in Holland and then abroad. We have also done experiments in Ireland already. What we are envisioning is small biorefineries, just big enough to be economically viable, integrated with biogas plants. So we can make use of the waste heat and the logistics of the biomass there. I think, well, next year we are planning to build our first commercial plant. We will validate our economy of the plant, and after that we expect to be building two in 2022, and then I think in 10 years we will be operating about 20 to 30 biorefineries. They are 8 tons per hour, so that's not a lot. We hope it will go faster, but we need some incentives from the government, and also we need to make the biorefineries more economically interesting, and that means that we need to lower the energy use, lower the capital costs of the biorefinery, and also automation is very important. So there is still a way to go, but we think we are able now to get a commercial plant running next year, just as the Danish colleagues also are planning to do.
Perfect, thank you very much. And also I heard that sort of local, so it's quite locally functioning and connected with other bits of infrastructure as well, is something I heard. Sinead, what does it look like for you in 10 years time, that successful business? Do you have any key traits or insights?
Yeah, I think that's really a question of scales and a question of layers. I think it's been touched on by a lot of the presenters today. I think particularly Bram just mentioned it, and I think Maria Rosa also mentioned in her presentation that the key question really is quality and quantity. So what have you got and where have you got it? And I think that's one aspect that we have to look at, and also assurance of supply. So you have the layers around it. So you need to know that you have social acceptance for these kind of technologies, that you've got farmers willing to supply your biomass, or you have a biomass resource that is not being used. I think what I would ideally love to see, and I think we see this more and more, grasslands are pretty much an endangered habitat, especially when we see the EEA, so the Environmental Agency of European Environmental Agency, their report on the status of biodiversity that was released this week. We can see that I think there was 126 sites that they had included under the Habitats Directive. And of those sites, roughly over half of them are in a bad condition, in a poor condition. And I mean, there's many different reasons for that. So one key reason for that is abandonment of these grasslands. So they're not being cut, they're not being managed. And here there's a golden opportunity for exploitation of these types of grasslands within bio-based, alternative bio-based systems. So what I would ideally like to see is that we're looking at what kind of resources we have. We're looking at what kind of physical and social infrastructures we have. So what kind of industries that are already there can we start developing kind of industrial ecology network. So my waste is your resource, my raw material is, I don't know, so that you have industry sharing and cooperating, but also that you have education centers facilitating these transfers of knowledge. When you look at technology readiness levels within the bioeconomy systems, you can see that a lot of the pitfalls happen between pilot stage to demonstration or commercial phase. And this has already happened before within Europe. If we go back 10 or 15 years, we can see that there was really quite a lot of research going on within green biorefinery and alternative use of grasslands, and a lot of them got to pilot stage, and then suddenly it all fizzled out. There was no more discussions really about it. There's a couple of papers that have been released in between, but the kind of push behind it was lost. So it's really nice to see that this push is coming back again, and we're seeing this push really coming from a European level, and I'd like to see that happen even further. And I think it really, the key is, yeah, integration of all these various different systems, looking at what we have and what we can do with it, and doing that within the kind of environmental and natural constraints that we have. So that's my vision, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for that. In terms of that social landing pad for the technologies and the different value chain collaborations and things like that. Johannes, you mentioned living labs and bringing these actors together as well. Is that key to success and strong grass-based businesses in the future for you as well?
Well, thanks. I might comment the first question. The question, what will be the successful grassland system in the future? And two answers to this. The one is, it will be still an agricultural enterprise. So it will be done within agriculture. This is my expectation. And second answer to this is, there is not the successful systems. There will be a range. Actually, we need diversity of systems, be it milk, beef, horses, quite important to maintain the services coming from grassland, sheep, quite important, goat, and also biorefinery, of course. So we need a range of activities to develop those systems. So this is the first question. I comment to the first question, but the second question now is, what is our experiences with Living Lab and with adopting transformation type of research? And we think this is it's of overriding importance. I mean, Sheena just told us that there have, for example, been attempts to develop pilot systems for alternative uses of grasslands, and they just drizzle out, so they don't came to the ground actually. One reason, I mean, there are always several reasons, but one reason is that quite often those people who have to adopt later on are not involved right from the start. So if you take transformation research serious, then it's not only about delivering knowledge or delivering results or innovations, but it starts already when you try to find the right question to your research. So it's not only that we have an idea about what we want to achieve, but we have to ask the stakeholders right from the start whether they think it's a reasonable target that we are aiming for. So it's a process where you have to integrate the potential stakeholders right from the start. And the particular thing is, I mean, I'm at the university and I have discussions with my president saying, right, I see you are sort of applied science, but of course, you know, university is all about knowledge. And science is for science, not for practice at first place at the university. And then my point is, this is obviously true, but we are working in a field where the science can make a difference to the society. So we should realize, and if we take this as a framework, then we have to adapt our science into a system where we look how the stakeholders look at their views on the topic. So it's an approach which can't be disciplinary, at least not single discipline. Of course, we have to be strong in disciplines, but we have to put together various disciplines, people who often do not speak together, and we have to integrate really those guys that are on the ground and that at the end will make the development running. Thanks.
I think, yes, I mean, we're all going from linear to circular in so many different ways, and obviously your research as well, it's as much a collaboration and mindset challenge as an innovation challenge. I think, thanks for setting that out so clearly as well. And I think, Philipp, just if I could finish with you on a sort of a vision for grass-based businesses as the coordinator of a project called Go Grass. I'm sure you have some thoughts here.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm kind of in a lucky position as a social scientist. I'm very much interested in how businesses develop, and what I have observed also in this kind of businesses is quite a lack of capacities, not only at the level of individuals but also organizations, and that might have led to what Sunit said, like pilot projects, pilot activities, not maturing into real businesses. And that's my vision for this, that these businesses should be, of course, robust enough to deal with changing circumstances, but also be replicable, so that there's a growth in the sector. And well, I'm very much interested also in interdisciplinary approaches, and one aspect I may want to highlight besides the business aspect is what Johannes mentioned, the multifunctionality of these businesses, because it's not only about producing grass for bioeconomy, but also what Johannes said, the cultural, the grazing, the grazing farming systems. But also this morning, for example, Dieter Kuper, he raised the question, we couldn't address that in the morning session, and it was talking about agro-silvopastoral systems. So integrating different land uses and balancing this in a proper way, I think will be is a key for at least my vision.
Like multifunctional landscapes, basically.
You said it. You say it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much to you all. The next question I had was around really about the big barriers and the brakes on making your vision a reality. And some of you have sort of mentioned some of the challenges in a way, but I mean, what are the real sticks in the wheels? Most of the time it's money. I mean, but today I read a piece in the newspaper that the European Investment Bank invested nearly 3 billion euros into circular economy businesses in 2019 alone, it said. So I'm sure money's not a problem, right? But I mean, what are the big issues that you found getting these businesses? You mentioned collaboration, landing points, and things like that. But is there policy as well? I mean, the recent cap coming out, is that going to be a help or a hindrance for you? So maybe you have some big barriers that are in your way that you could cite and give us an idea about how you overcome them. I'm open to whoever wants to take that one first.
Maybe I can comment on that. Yes, of course, money is always a big problem, especially if you are designing a rather complicated machinery, biorefinery, with lots of components in it. It's really difficult to get over the point that you can go commercial. And Jeanette also said something very interesting. Why didn't it take off in the 1980s? There must be something something different now, which will enable the biorefineries to roll out. I think there are several points to that. Also, very important is the environment. If we've run some LCAs on our biorefineries, and on all the key points, it's better to use a biorefinery instead of importing soy from abroad, from South America and Asia. The land use is less. The population is growing, but if you you're able to implement biorefineries in your agricultural systems, you'll be able to use less land and feed more mouths. So that will be this is a very important thing for the future also. And also the technology has made big advances. The biorefinery, as I said, is a very complex system, and you need automatization for the whole system. It's very expensive to employ 4 persons to operate the system, and that won't be commercially viable. Now we are looking at the machine, or we have built a machine which is able to be run by 1 person only, and that makes it a big difference. Also, the energy use is very much lower than in the 1980s, and we also are able to make use of new technologies like membrane and nanofiltration systems. So we are able to produce more added value to our grass. We can extract fructooligosaccharides, prebiotics from the grass, which is a big help in our business case. So then I get to the point, our LCA is very good. Why is the economy not good? That's a strange thing. It should be also economically better if the LCA is good. But I think the soy, which is coming from South America and the Americas, is low priced, too low priced. There is no environmental factors incorporated in that. Tropical rainforests are cut from it for that. The land is very inexpensive. And if you make an honest comparison between grass protein and soy protein, soy should be very much very higher priced. So here's a point for the political sector of our society. I think the soy protein should be taxed to be fair. Social problems I don't see. It's readily accepted. So I think a problem to solve is from the politics. They have to acknowledge the outcomes of our LCA, lower emissions of CO2, methane, and nitrogen, lower land use and lower energy use, and somehow they have to incorporate it into their policies. So by making biorefineries more interesting, for instance, tax cuts or something like that.
Perfect. Thank you very much for those insights. I mean, it's difficult to compete if there isn't that level playing field and the true environmental costs are not taken on board. I hear a lot about green deals and green recoveries and the new cap and things like that. So hopefully there's some evolution in the policy in your way. Johannes, I can see your hand raised. You want to chip in? We can hear you, I think. No, we can't. Nope.
Now it's working?
Yep.
Yeah.
Please
sorry.
go ahead. Yeah.
The question was, what are the challenges we are facing? And I would distinguish between challenges in terms of research and development and challenges with regard to the farming practice, the farming enterprise of the European Union. Those are two things. And to start with the overall economy of agriculture, of course, I agree with Bram saying quite a bit of the problems come from those unbalanced market things like very, very cheap and obviously no proper prices in terms of environmental consequences of inboard forages. But I would like to raise another point is I'm always a bit critical in terms of taxes and reducing global exchange of products, because we have the WTO treatment, and so it's not very easy to achieve. And in general, I mean, exchange processes are not bad for our economy. So we have to keep in mind that it's not easily done. So that's why I'm suggesting that there is quite a bit of money coming into the agricultural industry in Europe, from Europe itself, via Pillar 1 and 2. I mean, it's just discussed and agreed upon yesterday. And I can't figure out, it's sort of 1/3 of the budget of the European Union is going into agriculture. So there is potential to direct developments overall. And these are obviously not well done so far to achieve these overall goals, like encouraging farmers not only to produce in a very cheap way, but also to adopt techniques that are better for the environment, so to say. The other issue is also related to money, but it's what the European agriculture, or in particular the German agriculture, has gone away whereby they were streamlining the range of products produced. So milk was milk, there was no differentiation. We have learned over the last years, there is a potential to supply the market with different products of the same type, like we have the grazing milk, or you have the Weide milk in Holland. So we have different sorts, and we should be more intelligent, and the value, the chain should be more intelligent in terms of providing products that better fit into to what consumers would like to spend and to have, and thereby this offers an opportunity to raise more money for agriculture. And I don't think we are very good in this. I mean, the production systems in agriculture in Germany, for example, they are still going to more homogenization. So it's not heterogeneity, but it's homogeneous what they do, and is trying to do everything the same and having a proper product, but there's no differentiation. But there are incentives to go the other way. So this is another point. Well, enough for this time.
Thank you. So Sinead, did you have your Dutch grazing milk this morning, or could you not find it in the local shop?
No. Yeah, there's just so many different opinions on it, and I think really we can flap about as much as we want, but it always boils down to finance. You know, it really does. I mean, it does. I mean, whether that finance comes from the European Union, whether it comes from a consumer, or whether it comes from a private shareholder, it always comes down to a bottom line. Farmers have to make money because they have to keep the farm going and they have to feed their family. Biorefinery operators, they have to get some form of profit so they can pay people that are on the line and actually keep the thing open. So I mean, it comes down to the bottom line, and I think there we have to be kind of really pragmatic and practical. And again, like it's a well-known fact that when you go from pilot to demonstration, so you get a lot of funding from like the start. So you're in academia, you're a startup, you get a lot of funding from the government, you get a lot of funding from the EU. And I'm just, let's say, just talking about the technologies. I'm not going to go into the farming just yet, but just from technology development. And then that kind of it fizzles out, you know. So I think what we really need here is we need to lower the risk factor, which is related to governance, but we need to lower the risk factors so that private investors are willing to invest more, so that they want to see these companies get up and going, so they see that they will get return for their money. That's essentially it. How we do that, I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I mean, these are kind of things that we see in the research line, and but I think it is related then to the agricultural systems, to the CAP. There's a lot of discussion happening now about the CAP, which way they're going to go. Are they going to go from one of the greener alternatives, or are they going to stick with more of the land-based subsidies? What are they going to do? And this can really determine what kind of profitability the farmers are going to make, and how willing they might be to give extra grass to biorefineries, or how willing they're going to change from traditional systems to the kind of systems that we saw in Ireland, where they will refine the grass first, they give the press cake to the cows, and then they'll use the other parts of the grass for other things. So, you know, like the modification of the system. I totally agree with you, Johannes, what you said earlier, that you do need to have grazers as part of these systems. So you need to be able to incorporate all these different diversity of technologies and diversity of product baskets. And what you're saying is that in Germany, farmers are almost, in a sense, becoming like the monocultures that they're planting. They're kind of, you know, specializing, and, you know, with that they have a lot of, they're very susceptible to market shocks. They're very susceptible to climate impacts and things like this. And so what we need to be looking at are also systems that are climate resilient, that can take a number of hits from different markets. So that's the concept of biorefineries or alternative grassland use, that you have different products, so that if one product goes down, you're substituted with another product, so you can keep the system running. That's the original concept behind it anyway. And I think a lot of that, like, really it's funding, and where that funding comes and how you get that funding. Yeah, of course we have to be clever about it, but this is the biggest bottleneck, where to get the funding and how to get the funding. And you can even see the discussions now going towards these nature-based solutions, which are also kind of linked to grassland use and, I guess, ecosystem services. So, I mean, you'd be familiar with this, Johannes. How can you get private investors to be able to invest in these kind of local and regional systems that are producing multifunctional landscapes? How do we do this? Like you said that the EU Investment Bank, Alec, has invested in a lot of circular economies. What are the scales of these circular economies that they are, circular systems that they've been investing in, and what are the risk factors that are involved? Are they going to only invest in a sure thing, or are they going to invest in startups? So, I mean, this kind of information is also quite useful. So, yeah, I think it really, you know, no matter what way we say it, it comes down to money. And that's the sad fact of it.
Thank you for the sort of dose of reality, but also with a very interesting context and examples there, Sinead. Philipp, if I can turn to you, GreenGrass, you've got lots of wonderful ideas and sort of projects within projects in GreenGrass. What's stopping them all flourishing?
Well, it's quite paradox, I think, what we have heard, because on one side you say there is a lot of money there, it's available, but at the same time we perceive that the funding is not at the right place. So as Johannes says, it's a matter also of what priorities are given, and there I see is a very important issue, awareness in society about these services actually that grasslands are providing. When I see normal people talk to people in my family, they ask me, what are you doing? And I start to talk about grasslands. Even my own son, you know, I had to urge him to join this morning session so that he gets an idea how wonderful this grasslands are. So I'm quite convinced that if the awareness can be increased, then also many barriers and obstacles will be can be overcome. Even there are obstacles in the regulatory framework. If you think about, I mean, in the GreenGrass project, we're dealing with the EU fertilizer regulation, or with food hygiene safety regulations, which can obstruct certain activities. But yeah, I think they can be overcome. What I've heard from our partners, some of our partners in the project, they say, okay, we are very close to reach the cost level, you know, of covering the production costs, but yes, there needs to be more incentive to really invest into it, so that there's also you can always that there's a profit margin. Yeah. And I believe that this can be achieved by providing premium products, not just like the ordinary products, and also exploiting, for example, rural-urban linkages, where the customers are really valorize what these entrepreneurs in their environment are the benefits that they are providing.
Good. I hope your son was convinced after this morning's session. Tough if you can convince your family members. You know, that's we're one step forward, isn't it? The grandma test.
May I add 2 more points? Sorry, I just was thinking of it there. I think there's huge opportunities as well. I mean, it's kind of what Philipp was saying. Like, you're trying to motivate people into, you know, seeing that this is a huge chance for you know, biodiversity, for communities, for rural economies. I mean, it is a huge opportunity, and I think there's 2 aspects here. I kind of got a bit sidetracked, but when I was talking about what's happening with the CAP, if you shift more from land-based kind of or kind of aerial-based subsidies more towards services that are provided, and include subsidies for protection of diversity, protection of water, for enhancing kind of natural environments, this could be a good incentive for farmers to you know, for their grasslands, to manage these grasslands. Also, there's an opportunity, and I don't know what level this discussion is at the EU level, but they're talking about opening a carbon market for the agricultural sector. And this could also be a massive opportunity for grassland farming, because grasslands have been identified as a potential for sequestering a large amount of carbon. So there is a number, okay, you'll probably correct me on this, but there are a number of opportunities that could come from the agricultural side.
Johannes.
Well, no point. I'd like to do a different comment on the question on whether development is limited resources or it's all about money. Well, of course it's all about. I mean, as scientists, we love to complain about limited resources, but of course, I mean, if it comes to the whole story, then I think there is so much money around in the economy. I mean, now the money is discovering at the moment agriculture as a business of the future, and they are investing money, but they have no idea how and where it is best invested. And I think it's also a question of mindset, or is how we look at the potential of developments. And in this respect, I would love to see more support and more ideas from Europe and from the Commission and from the administration in order to channel money that is in the space to become active into like enterprises like Bram does. So there may be a bit of risk, but it has a huge potential, those things. But it seems there is a mismatch of ideas and startups and things, and I think there is huge money around. So I would like to have sort of support to direct this money into a development that we are aiming for as a whole, also as a society. And to give you one example is, I mean, if Europe would make it more clear that farmers can earn money with producing biodiversity or producing clear water, I mean, the signals we get from Europe are vague. And it's not a strong incentive for a farmer really to change from business that is only oriented to production and not really, there is no proper incentive. It's okay, there is a program, I have the margin and all those things, but it's minor. So that there should be something that an investor is convinced, well, there is a development that is strongly supported by Europe and that will put farmers in a position to earn money from producing biodiversity, for example. But this does not exist at the moment.
Yes. Bram, perhaps you can tell us of your experiences at the coalface here.
I would like to comment on that also, especially from the working place area. What I said in the beginning is that we need to work on the energy efficiency and also the capital costs of the machines. It's a positive business case, but if a proposition is profitable, then there is lots of money from the market, not only from the governments, from the markets, and that's what we are seeing now. We have made business cases, and based upon the data we have produced last year and the year before, together with our business case, we see that lots of people are interested from the commercial side. But what's very important also is that the government has to state clear goals and make legislation on that concerning LCA points like biodiversity, like CO2 emissions, methane emissions, land use, and translate that in legislation which is very clear for us and for developments like this to go further. So we prefer, instead of subsidies, legislation. So, and a good example for that is, for example, we are looking into the future, and we like to incorporate grass protein into food recipes. Right now, it's forbidden by the European government to use grass protein in food. It would be a big help for us to find investors, but also environmentally, it's much better to use grass protein directly in food systems than in feed systems. So change the legislation or make it possible for the grass protein to enter the food chain, human food chain, would be a big help for us.
That sounds like a big battle to pick, Bram.
Yes, exactly. This battle is too big for us. We are just a small company. It's only 4 persons working there. It's too big for us to go lobbying in Brussels to get it done. But somebody has to do it. But on the other side, also big companies right now are seeing the added value of environmental friendly systems. For instance, Unilever, our big supermarkets like Albert Heijn, Jumbo, they are next year or the year after that, they want to start making cheese and milk produced from locally produced proteins. This is a big help for refineries, biorefineries. if one starts, all the others will follow. And also in this perspective, it's very important to have the whole chain from grass to cheese to the mouth of the consumer in controlled, so that we can divide the profits evenly and make it possible to implement biorefineries. So there are big things which we cannot change, but should change at a higher level.
That's very interesting. That clarity is for business to succeed is obviously fundamental. But interesting that you also mentioned that push from corporations and citizens as well. That might sort of, they're actually perhaps a driving force towards an end result that you'd like to see. So that alignment is kind of new potentially.
Eventually, it should be grassroots. To say it like this, grassroots pushed from below up, but it should be in a system which is made, which makes it possible to do this.
Yeah. There's, I think, perhaps here that's sort of some fascinating thoughts about where the pushes, the push and pulls are coming from in that sort of changing landscape. I think perhaps Philipp, we're sort of coming to the end of the session now. I'm looking whether we've got any questions from the panel as well, but perhaps you can sort of wrap up for us and give us a few words about the session and the prospects coming from GoGrass. And I'll just look and see if there's any questions coming in from the rest of the team.
Yes, I mean, even this panel discussion is close to finalizing. There will be still a contribution and a wrap-up session later on. Just to continue with the point that Bram raised, and also Johannes, I think there, on one side, we need to look how to redirect resources for certain activities, but at the same time also increase the capacity to pull those resources and to absorb them in this bioeconomy and in this grassland related activities, be it grazing, the traditional ones, or innovative ones. And this is, I think, the point I'm particularly concerned about. The development of capacities is very crucial. And in the GoGrass project, for example, we see some really nice cases how to get there. I can draw your attention to the case in Denmark, for example, where you can see a replication of this at the level of farms already, and even some industrial complex. But this is very much based on cooperation structures which have developed over time, and that clearly points towards, I think, social capacities. It's not only about knowledge, technology, and you know, the hardcore issues, but also how to bring this together in business models that are replicable and inclusive and more.
Yeah, there are definitely some hotspots where the magic happens, and other places where the magic doesn't. It's trying to sort of capture that. So we hope that the magic continues to happen in GoGrass. And I think I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone on the panel. That was a very interesting discussion, and I hope it was rewarding for the participants too. I was trying to spot, which is why I was distracted for 2 seconds there about a couple of questions, but I think that there are possibly questions that can be taken just in the chat. I think we've got one about how to motivate the cows, but I think that's back to your collars, Johannes. So I think we'll leave that one and just thank everyone on the panel for a really good discussion. And I'll invite Molukin to perhaps come back on board and transition us on to the next session. So thank you very, very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, and Alec as well for your wonderful moderation. Now we are entering into the final session. So now the next presenter is I'll give the floor for Žymantas Morkvėnas, he's a director for Baltic Environmental Forum. He'll give us a presentation on tools and recommendation for sustainable grassland management. He's working for LIFE Viva Grass project.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Well, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay.
Put your video on.
I think I switched on the video, but yeah, okay, once again, I'll try to do that. Yeah, now probably you can see me.
Yes. Can you make the presentation a full screen?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so hello once again. My name is Žymantas Morkvėnas. Thank you for moderator for introducing me. And just to say a few words about myself, I am leading the environmental NGO in Lithuania called Baltic Environmental Forum. My background is I'm a biologist, but I am also a farmer, so I have a quite close relationships with the grasslands, with the small scale meat or beef farm. And also maybe what is important in this context of this conference is that my NGO is also running a pelleting facility, which is our biomass processing facility, which transfers late cut biomass, which is not usable as a fodder, into the pellets, which we use for animal bedding. And it is already functional business model, where we give sales not only in Lithuania but also in Scandinavia. Yeah. So our major focus when we deal with the grasslands and in Lithuania and especially with the pelleting facility is the conservation of a globally threatened bird, aquatic warbler, where we're restoring habitats, and this is where also how we get the late cut biomass apparent in our areas of interest. But anyway, here I was invited to give a presentation about the Viva Grass project results. So I'll try to give a very quick and brief look at the project, what it is about, and what is our major goal. I'll try to demonstrate it also a little bit. You can the Viva Grass project has been funded by the LIFE program and the National Ministries of Environment in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia as the co-funders. And you see so it's a rather big group of partners, 13 partners involved. And I was just screening today for preparing this presentation. I was looking into where from our idea has originated, and it was roughly 10 years ago. You see in the bottom there is a map of Vilnius where Ministry of Environment logo and Ministry of Agriculture logo, they are just around the block, and me and my colleague has been just passing from one ministry to the other to talk exactly about the grassland situation. And we were so surprised that these ministries, even being around the block, they are not so cooperative and they are not talking among each other. And if they would, they could solve a lot of things. And so it was 10 years ago, and then we realized that actually maintenance of a grasslands is very important, not only by applying direct conservation measures to maintain the grasslands habitats, but also we need to take care about the drivers which makes grasslands being grasslands. So we don't have any more the large herbivores roaming in our Europe, but and farming is replacing them. So there are a lot of socio-economic drivers and reasons which can be, how to say, vital to conclude if the grassland is abandoned or is it running or not. And this needs really more kind of a conceptual thinking and designing the, how to say, on the policy level, how to make sure that the valuable grasslands are maintained. When we 10 years ago, the ecosystem services assessment was a pretty new and promising concept, which of course we wanted to try out, and we wanted to link it to the practical decisions. We thought that, okay, if the farmers would be stimulated by the delivering ecosystem services, could be a good look into the payment system, for instance. Then we also understood that agricultural and environmental sectors, they both have a lot of different data holding, but we are not sharing them so much. And if we could really link this data into the spatially explicit platform, we could have a lot of help to foresee preconditions important to maintain grasslands. So we wanted to create some kind of a tool where we put the data online, and yeah, it contributes to the solving and planning and yeah, contributing to the maintenance of the grasslands. And I won't go into the very details, but the main goal or the main result of the Viva Grass project was we call it Viva Grass tool, the integrated planning tool, which is a web-based, which is based on web-based platform, and it is available. The data is available covering Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and is covering so far the grasslands only, so grassland ecosystems only, and not covering, for instance, like forest ecosystems or others. Or not only grasslands, but it also covers the arable land as well, not only grasslands, I have to say. And it's kind of the open source policy for this tool, and basically that tool can also be adopted in the other parts of Europe if anyone is motivated to work with that. I will go a little bit to the internet and to show you what is the basic functionality of our tool and how it helps to the grasslands, how it is applicable. But basically we divided the tool into kind of three parts, three segments. So we call it, or three products. We call it Viva Grass Viewer, which is a very basic tool or information provider for everyone. We foresee in the target group, like for instance farmers, but also local authorities or politicians, just to see to have a more awareness about the ecosystem services, but also have a kind of more basic information. Then we have the specific module called Viva Grass Bioenergy, which maybe in this context of this conference could also be of pretty interest. I will demonstrate it. And then the most sophisticated part of the tool, which is called Viva Grass Planner, which is designed for the registered users. Everyone can register to that and use it in the much more complex situations, doing the planning and landscape planning, for instance, any other exercises where they need to upload their own data and work with own data. So I'll try to jump into the Viva Grass tool. I think yes, you can see the screen. So this is the Viva Grass website, where you can reach the tool by clicking here the menu, the tool, and then you get into the modules, and then you can choose one of these tools. If we talk about the if we talk about the viewer, for instance, there is a button where you get into the map. This is when you open, what you see here is that this is kind of more general information about the 3 Baltic states. Here you can see the concentration of the grasslands in the Baltic states, but behind you can also see, for instance, where is concentration of the grasslands, which are we call it which are concentrated in so-called habitat bundle according to the ecosystem services, where there are habitats where there are more how to say intensively delivered ecosystem services related to the conservation or related like herbs and medicine, pollination, maintaining habitats, global climate regulation, or you can see where the production ecosystem services related to the production are concentrated in the Baltic region. But then if you zoom in into the down to more local level, here we are now in Lithuania, near the Baltic Sea, near the Curonian Lagoon in Nemunas River Delta. You can see the land plots, and this is the Viva Grass viewer. So this is kind of a very basic information what everyone can see, and there are several segments we have. Of course, like the very basic one is the agriculture. It's the land use. Here you can see where are cultivated grasslands, semi-natural grasslands, where is arable land, and so on. But then we can also elaborate the mapping of the or assessment of the ecosystem services, where according to the Myers process it can be considered as tier 1 level of ecosystem service assessment, where you can select each of the different ecosystem services. Like for instance, we talk about the herbs for the medicine, and you can see which land plots are more important for these ecosystem services, which are less important. Or if we talk about for instance, biomass-based energy sources or habitats. So when we talk about the conservation, where are these habitats? Yeah, maintaining habitats. So you can see there are certain concentrations. So, but of course, going out, so you can have a summarized information. Then the second information in this Viva Grass viewer, we have a section which is called bundles and trade-offs. The bundles here, we have several bundles. Production bundle, habitats bundle, and soil bundle. Bundles basically means that there are certain ecosystem services which are, if you have one ecosystem service in the area, also there are also together there are also others closely linked. For instance, if we talk about the production bundle, if we have a rare animals ecosystem service strongly dominating fodder and biomass and energy, of course, will be also together. Or if we have a habitats bundle, so where we have a maintaining of habitats, we quite likely we have a pollination also strongly expressed, and herbs for medicine or global climate regulation bundle. So in this section, our farmers, but also planners, protected area administrations, local municipalities can see the bundles where are their concentrations, and these bundles means that these areas means that in that particular area, which is like in this case dark green, these habitats bundle ecosystem services are more than average expressed, or so they have a strong potential, strong supply. If we talk about the production, for instance, bundle, you see the areas where the production related ecosystem services are more than average expressed in the area. Then we have an interesting production is this one, Then we have trade-offs scenarios where basically which means that these areas there is competition between the different bundles. For instance, if in this case the trade-off in the betterment of habitats, so means that the areas are important for the nature conservation, and there is a dominating ecosystem service delivery for the habitats bundle. But at the same time, these areas are also fertile, and they could also be good potential for production-related ecosystem services. So there is a certain competition between these bundles together. Yeah, for instance, there is a ecosystem trade-off for the benefit of production. You see in yellow the areas which are dominated with intensive agricultural land use, but they would also have a potential for the conservation purposes. And then eventually we have hotspots and cold spots, where there is, to simplify, basically in the cold spots, it means there are very few ecosystem services delivered there, and this is mostly a kind of intensive, unsustainable land use, where in the hotspot areas there is quite a big variety of ecosystem services delivered, and kind of the land use is more sustainable there. Then if you are as a farmer, for instance, you can also get into your own field. Then you can click on your own field, and then each area each land plot, there is more detailed mapping of what are ecosystem services and how they are delivered. There are some recommendations to the farmers, and there is a functionality that the farmer can also play with scenarios. What would happen if in this land plot, for instance, would be turned into the arable land? Then you can see the trends of different ecosystem services, how they will change. Yeah, so the farmer can use it for some kind of a planning, considering the ecosystem services delivery. So that's this part of our tool called Viva Grass Viewer. The other part of our Viva Grass tool is so-called bioenergy. This one is elaborated now only in Estonia so far, but again, I mean, our project goal was to develop the tool, the matrix, the machine behind this skin, and this can also be programmed in other regions if it is needed. And basically, very shortly, this part of the tool is talking about the demands and supply. When we talk about the biomass used for the heating demands. Here you can see in this reddish color, you can see the demand, the heat demand in the areas where, so these are populated sites. There are also the locations of the district heating plants, existing district heating plants, and basically this tool can be used, for instance, for municipality if they are planning to build a new biomass heating facility which would heat biomass and produce heat from the biomass by burning bales, for instance. And in the green color, you see the biomass potential, which is evaluated by the tons per hectare of the biomass. So how much you can get. You can see it's tons per hectare. You can also look at the calorific value. So this is calculated according to calorific value. And you see on the right side there are already calculations. So currently in this visible part of the map, there is nearly 40,000 tons of biomass can be harvested, and you see the calorific potential and what is the demand of the heating in this region. Yeah, you can. Yeah, if you are, I don't know, let's say from this town, from Haapsalu, you can make a selection and you have a calculation only in a certain part of the area which you can cover with your transportation, for instance. So so this kind of a tool can be used for planning and modeling the grasslands, which could be used for the heating supply. And again, there are some context data where you can, for instance, recommended grazing pressures in the area. So there are some contextual data where you can compare the biomass used for heating, competing with the biomass using for grazing animals, for instance. Finally, another section of the tool. Another section of the tool is the one which is called Planner. I will not go into the online web because then it requires more time to upload the data and make the calculations. I will just give you some examples, illustrations of what this tool is doing in more sophisticated manner. What are some stories? And so these are real life stories, how this more integrated and sophisticated planning tool has been used for plans that having kind of more strategic planning of maintenance of the grasslands. We have it so-called the green network. This is the Estonian case. There is a task to build a green network, which also have a certain legal it has a certain legal background and is used further for the spatial planning for the regional development. And you see in the picture in green, these are the currently or the originally designed green network for Estonia. This is Saaremaa Island. But with the planner module, we have a possibility to add the grassland areas from the, as we call it, from this habitat bundle. So meaning that these land plots where herbs and medicine, pollination, maintaining habitats, global climate regulation, ecosystem services are more highly expressed. So they are more important, these areas for the ecosystem services I just mentioned. So you see, there is already not all of these important grasslands are fitting into the currently designed, originally designed green network for Estonia. At the second stage, we also added additionally the data on the land plots which are important from the protected species. So this is the land plots where the protected species has been mapped or occurring. So they have to be also protected, basically to be belonging to the green network as well. And then we added the soil bundle, meaning the ecosystem service, so the bundle which holds a stronger expression into the ecosystem services which are supporting the soil quality. So putting this together, plots and bundles in the tool, we can redesign and we can reset the priorities and for the green network, and then which is then updated and further used for the regional planning or planning of the Saaremaa Island and so forth for spatial planning. The other story, just to say, is pretty straightforward. It's about the setting. So the planning tool is being able to set the priorities. You can design and make a weighting of your priorities as very flexibly. And in this particular case, there was a need for setting the priorities where to change the land use and to build more green infrastructure. You see here is already the solution. which basically red is the kind of the highest priority, where we have to restore grassland. So this is all arable land in these colored land plots, and red illustrates the highest priority where it has to be restored back into the grasslands. And the priority has been done considering the flood risk zones and occurrences of organic soils. And yeah, so this tool, for instance, for municipality planner, making a spatial plan and thinking about the further development of the region, can relatively easy. Of course, it requires some skills and thinking, but basically relatively easy can do such kind of a task and plan the region to make sure that the most important areas for grasslands are maintained, and in this case, the grasslands are restored. And what I wanted to also to mention that basically by Viva Grass Europe, but not only, but this our work has been pretty important in the Baltic states region to contribute to the EU maestros, the mapping and assessment of ecosystems and their services. So basically with the functionality of this base map, where I illustrated where the ecosystem services are mapped, we basically reached this tier 1 level, the expert data assessment of ecosystem services. And then we'll talk about the hotspots, cold spots and hotspots, and the bundles functionality. So it's a little bit more sophisticated. These are already covering the tier 2 level. And if we are getting into the planner with the planner tool, that can go even deeper to tier 3 level. So very important EU process, MIAS process, that our project has been pretty important for the Baltic states to progress in this process. In the title of my presentation, and that's my last slide, in the title of my presentation, there were word recommendations. In our project, we have elaborated quite a few recommendations, and there are much more slides for that. I would probably share it with the file when full with the text, but which lists more detailed recommendations, but some observations, like policy observations. I think they are linking quite well also with the discussion session which has been before this presentation. But I would say that we started 10 years ago with thinking that there is a lack of coordination between environment and agriculture sectors, and after 10 years now, I can probably still repeat the same observation, but the coordination maybe is stronger, but it is still lacking. I have a feeling that when we talk on the policy level, that there are some historic reasons for that. Because if we look to the history of common agricultural policy, originally this policy is designed for supporting farmers producing food and not producing environment and not producing biodiversity. And probably in the backbone of agricultural policymakers, they still feel like that. And the pillar 2 of a CAP policy, they still consider primarily as the resources to be given for delivering of the agricultural products, and not the delivering ecosystem, supporting ecosystem services delivering, or public goods, other public goods like biodiversity, for instance. I think we have to recognize that common agriculture policy is a major opportunity, but actually at the same time is a major problem for grasslands habitats and environment in general, because it drives the certain agricultural practices which is destroying grasslands. I can say that for Lithuania, in the past periods, we have already destroyed 10% of the Natura 2000 habitats, grassland habitats, which has been mapped. But as I say, it is also an opportunity. If we look at who's funding biodiversity for Lithuania, similar also to the other Baltic states, actually 2/3 for Lithuania funding for biodiversity comes from the CAP policy. So this is a really good opportunity if we really use it well. I think this conference in particular addresses the point that we need to widen the understanding for what the payment shall be paid. And we need to widen the understanding what is the agricultural products, what we mean with agricultural products. For instance, producing the pellets for the animal bedding, or there were also other examples given today. Is it part of agriculture products, or is it something else? Would the fields which deliver grassland should fall into the CAP policy or not? And for instance, at the moment, paludiculture, which was I think also mentioned today, is not part of the CAP direct payment system. And by widening understanding of what the payment should be designed for, I also mean that we have to widen we have to realize that it's not only food which agriculture is producing, but also delivering public goods and enhancing some ecosystem services where the payments could also be paid for. And another, I think, important thing, which observation related.
Žymantas. Sorry, are you finalizing? We are a bit out of time. Would you please wrap up to finalize?
Yes. Yeah. So I have just a final sentence here. What is important, what links to our tool is that some such tools which are operating on the spatial level can really contribute a lot to enhance better targeting to the CAP payment system. So the payments can be better targeted to the areas where, as I illustrated, the bundles and trade-offs are concentrated, for instance. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Žymantas, for sharing your experience on the tools and recommendation of sustainable grassland management. Now we are entering into our final sessions. So I would like to thank with this opportunity the presenters and the panelists who share their results, experience, and also vision for grass-based technologies and business development. I guess by now I believe that we understand that we are not alone there, but plenty of visionaries, researchers who would like to make a sustainable impact for untapped potential from grass. I would also like to thank the participants for joining us on this event since this morning. Thank you for your active participation. This is really quite interesting participants. We have really observed in the morning even over 80 participants. So this was really a good event. And also you can see how important it is to understand and exploit the potential of grass in circular bioeconomy. I would also use this opportunity to extend my appreciation for the European Union and also organizers of the EU Green Week event. I think this is also give us the opportunity now to collaborate among ourselves. Just to give you, to give a kind of really brief summary. So this morning, as you remember, we start with the question, why the focus on grass? So we start our events early this morning. So after asking this question, we try to understand the potential in grassland. So, so in terms of technologies, what kinds of technologies, innovations, product and services, and also what kinds of business could potentially be developed out of this. And somehow we also try to see the contribution to sustainable development goals. So during the presentation, we also understand that the various, so we have observed like 5 different projects, as you remember. So we have the grassification project, the biorefinery glass project, the GreenGrass project, the LIFE Viva Grass project, and also, of course, experience from the GoGrass project. So with these projects, I personally understand that the various there are like various innovative technologies, products and services where these various projects are working. So this innovation shows that we are not all alone there, but with a big challenge, but with also a potential for a collaboration. You can also see that we have common constraints that's basically hindering, let's say, to develop the technology and also implement those technologies into realization. For instance, in the panel discussion, we were like raising issues concerning the questions of regulation, legislation, and the question to push, for instance, the European Union for further funding in this area. So this is not only a common constraint, but at the same time, I also observed a kind of interlinked objectives among these projects. So as a final things, I see really a good potential for synergies among these interesting projects. We have really interesting researchers, stakeholders, and also from the private sectors. So let us use this opportunity, this event, as a starting point, let's say, for future collaboration among ourselves. I think by now we already observed what kinds of projects there, whom we are going to contact, and so on. So let's use these opportunities to start this kind of lack of cooperation, which is one way or another mentioned during the day, to start our cooperation for to strengthen and develop to upcome our problems or constraints that we are facing in this project or in this area of grassland. So I would like to thank you from my side. Maybe a final point from Benedict. She would like to say maybe a few points how we basically going to get our slides and so on. Benedict, if you want to say something.
Thank you very much, Mulukan, for these insightful conclusions. And I think we can thank ATB also for the organization. That was great. Just a few points. You're going to receive all the slides, well, links to the slides and to the recording of this event per email later on in a couple of days. So be a bit patient. You're going to receive that soon. And we hope you stay up to date with the project. Keep going on the GoGrass website. You're going to have some news soon. And stay in touch. And thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you.
So now it's time to close. Have a nice afternoon, all of you, and hope to see you later for more collaboration. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.